I read the text. I didn't cry. Not right away. My daughter had been gone for maybe 40 minutes. I was still in the parking lot of Terminal B, sitting in my car with the engine running, watching other people hug their families goodbye. That's the thing nobody tells you about dropping your child off at the airport. The drive home is the hardest part. You're not sad yet. You're just empty. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Ruth Ann. That's what I almost typed, but no. Her name was Georgette. Georgette had worked next door to me at the dry cleaners back in 1987, before I retired, before all of this. She had been coming around to check on my house twice a week ever since my hip replacement in March. She wasn't hired help. She was just that kind of woman, the kind who shows up with a covered dish before you even know you need one. The text said, "Don't go home yet. I'm in your driveway. You need to see something first. Call me." I stared at that message for a long time. Georgette was not a dramatic person. She was 69 years old, a former school teacher, and the most practical human being I had ever met in my life. If Georgette said you needed to see something, you needed to see something, I called her. She picked up on the first ring. Her voice was quiet, too quiet. "Yvonne," she said, and just the way she said my name, I knew. "What happened?" I asked. "Your son-in-law's car is here." I looked at the clock on my dashboard. It was 11:15 on a Tuesday morning. My son-in-law was supposed to be at work. He managed the regional office of a logistics company in Kennesaw. He didn't work from home. He didn't have a flexible schedule. He told me once that he ate lunch at his desk every single day because taking an hour away from the floor made him anxious. "He called in sick," I said. "Maybe, probably. There was a simple explanation. His car has been here since before 9, Georgette said. "I noticed it when I came to water your plants. Yvonne, the back door is unlocked. I didn't go in, but I could hear music. My daughter's flight had left at 8:50. She had been gone for less than 3 hours. I didn't say anything for a moment. I was doing the math nobody wants to do. "I'm coming back," I said. "Don't pull into the driveway," she said. "Park on Halcyon. Come through my yard." That was how I found out that the man my daughter had been married to for 11 years was not the man any of us thought he was. I need to back up a little, because this story doesn't make sense without the context, and the context took me 63 years to understand. My daughter Wren was 34 years old. She had her father's eyes and my stubbornness, which I say as a compliment to both of us. She had worked for 12 years as a pediatric occupational therapist, and she was genuinely gifted at it. Patient in a way I never could have been, steady in a way that took me decades to learn. She married her husband, a man I will call by his first name only because I am still bound, even now, by some instinct towards civility. She married Colt when she was 23 years old, right out of graduate school, and I had quiet reservations that I kept to myself, because it was not my life. I want to be clear about that. I kept my reservations to myself. My mother had never done that for me, and I had sworn I would be different. Colt was handsome and capable, and he made good money, and he treated Wren well, at least in the ways I could see. He remembered birthdays. He came to family dinners. He helped Wren's father, God rest him, move furniture the summer before he got sick, and he never complained once. I had no evidence of anything wrong. I had only a feeling, the kind that lives in your chest without explanation, that sometimes woke me up at 3 in the morning for no reason I could name. I parked on Halcyon Street. I walked through Georgette's backyard in my good shoes because I hadn't thought to change before I left for the airport that morning. She met me at her back gate, and she held my arm as we went through the hedge that separates her property from mine. and she did not say a word the whole time, which I think was the kindest thing she could have done. We stood at the corner of my back porch, behind the azalea bushes, and I looked through the kitchen window. Colt was sitting at my kitchen table. My kitchen table, with a woman I had never seen before in my life. They were drinking coffee out of my mugs, the blue ones Wren had given me for Christmas 2 years ago, and the woman had her feet tucked up underneath her on my chair, the way you only sit in a place where you feel completely at home. I stood there and I did not move. Georgette's hand was still on my arm. I could feel her pulse through her fingers, or maybe that was mine. "How long?" I asked. My voice came out smaller than I expected. "I don't know," she said. "But Yvonne, that's not all." She handed me her phone. She had taken a photograph through the kitchen window, from a different angle than where we were standing now, and in the photograph I could see the edge of the kitchen counter, and on the counter, stacked in a pile, were what looked like folders. File folders. The kind people use for documents. "I didn't touch them," Georgette said, but I could see the tab on the top one. I looked at the photograph more closely. The resolution wasn't perfect. Georgette's phone was 3 years old, but I could read it. 3 words, handwritten on a tab in what I recognized as Colt's handwriting, because I had seen his handwriting on birthday cards and grocery lists for 11 years. It said, Yvonne. House. Transfer. My house. My name. I want to stop here for a moment and explain something. I am 63 years old. I am a widow. My husband Ray passed 4 years ago from pancreatic cancer, which took him in 7 months and did not leave a lot of time for proper arrangements. Ray had handled our finances the way men of his generation often did, meaning he handled them, and I trusted him, and that arrangement had worked fine for 31 years, and then one day it was just me, and I had to learn very quickly how to read documents I had never thought much about before. We owned this house outright. Ray and I had paid off the mortgage in 2019. The house was worth somewhere around $420,000 by the last appraisal, which I knew because I had been careful since Ray died to know the things I needed to know. It was in my name, just mine. I went back to Georgette's house. I sat down at her kitchen table and I called my attorney. His name is Bernard Okafor, and he has handled my affairs since Ray died. And when I told him what I had just seen through my own kitchen window, he was quiet for a moment, and then he said, Yvonne, do not go back into that house alone. Do you understand me? I understand you, I said. Have you signed anything recently? Anything your son-in-law asked you to look at? I thought about it. 3 weeks ago, Colt had come by on a Saturday afternoon while Wren was at a baby shower. He said he was helping a colleague with some real estate paperwork, and he needed a witness signature on a notarization form. Nothing important, just a procedural thing, he said. I should be grateful I still have my wits about me enough to explain it, ha ha. And I had signed it because he was my son-in-law, and I had known him for 11 years, and it had not occurred to me that I should read it more carefully. I told Bernard this. Bernard said, Okay, stay where you are. I'm going to make some calls. Georgette sat across from me and put a cup of tea in front of me that I didn't drink. We didn't talk much. There wasn't much to say. I kept thinking about Wren on that plane, somewhere over the Midwest, on her way to a conference in Portland that she had been excited about for months. She had shown me the schedule. She had bought a new blazer. She had kissed me on the cheek at the curb outside Terminal B and said, Love you, Mom. I'll call you when I land. She was going to land in a city where everything was the same, and then she was going to call me, and nothing was going to be the same. Bernard called back in 40 minutes. 40 minutes is a short time in most circumstances. It was a very long 40 minutes. What he had found was this. 3 weeks ago, the same day I had signed the notarization form, a deed transfer had been initiated on my property. The form I signed had not been a witness form for a colleague. It had been, with some alterations I had not caught, a limited power of attorney form authorizing Colt to act on my behalf in real estate transactions. Bernard had caught it before it finalized. The transfer had not gone through yet. There was a mandatory review period under Georgia law, and we were still inside that window, but only just. If I had come home from the airport and gone inside and sat down and had my lunch and watched my shows and not seen Georgette's text, the window would have closed in 6 days. I sat with that for a long time. 6 days. I thought about all the ways I might have spent those 6 days. Tending my garden. Video calling Wren in Portland. Cooking the peach preserves I had been meaning to make since July, living my ordinary life while the house that Ray and I had built together, that we had finished paying for with our own hands, quietly transferred out from under me. Bernard filed to revoke the power of attorney that afternoon. He also contacted the Cobb County DA's office because what Colt had done was not a civil matter. It was elder financial fraud, which in the state of Georgia carries serious criminal penalties. Bernard used the word serious in the deliberate way that attorneys use words when they want you to understand without alarming you. I was alarmed. That's fine. Alarm was the appropriate response. What I had not yet done was call my daughter. I want to talk about this part carefully, because I think about it still. I sat in Georgette's kitchen for almost 2 hours, and I did not call Wren. I kept picking up my phone and putting it down, not because I was trying to protect her. I had made that mistake for years, protecting her from things she had the right to know, but because I was trying to understand what I was going to say. How do you tell your child that the person she has built her life around has been stealing from her mother? How do you say that without also saying, I saw it coming? Because I had. Not this, not specifically this, but something. That feeling at 3 in the morning, the way Colt sometimes looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention, not unkindly, but evaluating. The way he asked questions about the house that I had always told myself were just friendly interest. I called her when she landed. She answered on the second ring, bright and a little breathless. Mom, I just got in. The flight was so smooth, he would have loved it. Wren, I said, I need you to sit down. There was a pause. Mom, what happened? That is not a question the way I wrote it. That is the voice of a child who has lived long enough to know that some sentences are not questions. I told her everything. I was careful. I was factual. I did not editorialize. I told her what Georgette had seen, what I had seen, what Bernard had found, what had nearly happened, and what was going to happen next. She was quiet for a very long time. Then she said, the woman at the table. I don't know who she is, I said. I think I do, she said. It turned out Wren had had her own 3 in the morning feeling. She had not told me about it because she was protecting me the way I had protected her. And we were apparently 2 women who had spent years protecting each other from the truth that was sitting right there at my kitchen table, drinking coffee out of my blue Christmas mugs. She had noticed things over the past year, small things. Money moved between accounts with explanations that were just plausible enough. A password changed on a joint account, then changed back. A weekend trip, he said, was a work conference that she had not been able to verify because she had not wanted to verify it, because verifying it would mean knowing. She knew now. She did not come home early. That was her decision, and I respected it completely. Bernard advised that it was actually better if Colt did not know we knew. Not yet. So Wren stayed in Portland. She went to her conference. She attended the sessions and took notes and had dinner with colleagues and called me every night, and she was extraordinary. I don't use that word lightly. My daughter, at 34 years old, under circumstances that would have flattened most people, was extraordinary. Meanwhile, Bernard was working. He connected with a forensic accountant who specialized in marital financial fraud, a woman named, I will call her Dr. Finch because she asked me not to use her name. And Dr. Finch spent 4 days doing what she called a financial autopsy on the last 3 years of Colt and Wren's joint finances. What she found was methodical. That was the word she used. Methodical. Over 38 months, Colt had transferred a total of $63,000 out of their joint savings in increments small enough to avoid automatic flags, always under $9,000, always with an explanation attached. Always at moments when Wren was busy or distracted or traveling. A parent-teacher conference she was running. A difficult week with a patient. The month her father was dying. He had timed it around her grief. I am going to say this again because I think it deserves to be said clearly. He had timed the transfers to coincide with the periods when my daughter was most distracted by pain. When Wren came home from Portland, she went to stay with a friend. She did not go back to the house she shared with Colt. She called him from her friend's guest room and told him she needed some space to decompress after the conference, which was true in ways he didn't understand yet. He said that was fine. He sounded comfortable. He sounded like a man who had no reason to be uncomfortable. The DA's office moved the following week. I was not there when they came for him. I had been advised to stay home, and I did, and Georgette came and sat with me, and we drank actual tea this time, and we watched a game show that neither of us were paying attention to, and at 3:17 in the afternoon, my phone rang and it was Bernard, and he said, "It's done, Yvonne." Colt was charged with elder financial fraud, forgery of a legal document, and unauthorized use of a power of attorney. The woman at my kitchen table, whose name it turned out Wren had already suspected, was also questioned in connection with the investigation, though the charges against her were less clear. That part is still working its way through the legal system, and I have been advised not to say more. What I can say is this: my house is still mine. The deed transfer was voided. The power of attorney was revoked. The $63,000 is subject to a civil recovery action that Bernard says has a very strong likelihood of success, though he warned me not to expect it to be fast. Nothing in the legal system is fast. I have accepted that. Wren filed for divorce in November. She found an attorney on her own. She didn't ask me to help her find one. She did it herself. And she has been, through the whole of this process, more capable than I knew. More capable, maybe, than she knew herself. I think that is the thing about going through something like this. You find out what you are made of, not in some motivational poster sense, but in the plain, quiet, actual sense. You find out that you can sit in a stranger's kitchen for 2 hours and not fall apart. You find out that your daughter can attend a professional conference while her marriage is collapsing and come home with business cards and new ideas and her back straight. You find out that your neighbor, who is 69 years old and has her own aches and her own life and her own reasons not to get involved, will stand in a hedge in the 11 o'clock morning and take a photograph on a 3-year-old phone because she loves you. I think about Georgette a lot. I think about the fact that she could have watered my plants and gone home and said nothing. She could have told herself it wasn't her business. She could have assumed there was a simple explanation, A lot of people do that. A lot of people talk themselves out of seeing what is right in front of them, because seeing it requires doing something about it, and doing something about it is inconvenient. Georgette did not talk herself out of anything. I bought her a new phone. A nice one. She complained about it for 2 weeks, said it was too complicated, said she didn't need anything that fancy, said I was being ridiculous. I told her she was welcome. She rolled her eyes, and then she called her granddaughter on it for 45 minutes. And when she came over the next day, she admitted that the camera was, in fact, very good. It is April now. The azaleas in my backyard are blooming the way they do every year, reliable as anything, not caring at all about what happened last winter. Wren came for Sunday dinner 3 weeks ago, and she laughed, really laughed, at something I said about the news, and I watched her face and I thought, there she is. There is my daughter. She is going to be all right. We both are. I am 63 years old, and I live alone in the house that Ray and I built, and my neighbor waters my plants when I travel, and my daughter calls me every Tuesday, and sometimes at 3 in the morning I wake up for no reason I can name. But now when I wake up, I get up. I make a cup of tea. I sit by the window and I watch the street, and I remind myself of something I think I knew all along, but I'm only now learning to believe. Paying attention is not paranoia. It is just love, in one of its quietest forms.